Okay, I'm going to do a short video on this Jeep 2016 Patriot. It has a 2.0 liter inline 4 in it, and the problem with it is check engine light came on and was really running rough like crap. And it had a code of number 2 in the number 3 cylinder misfire. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that can cause a misfire. Bad injector, bad plugs, you know, the usual suspects. So this vehicle isn't mine. It belongs to my son-in-law and daughter. And they had the codes checked out, and they gave me the codes on it. So he had changed the spark plugs in it. Now this vehicle has 75,000 miles on it, and he changed the spark plugs on it, and there was no improvement. So then he brought it over, and I said, well, we'll take a look at it. And you know, the first thing I did was pull the oil fill cap. And as I was unscrewing it, there was so much blow-by in the crankcase, this thing was just about jumped right out of the hole. The reason I chose this path to start out with was because he said when he changed the air filter in the air filter box, there was oil in the box. And when you have oil in the box, because that's where the PVC is venting from, you know, it's filtering that air, and that means that the blow-by is just backing up into the filter area and putting oil in there. So that's why I went right to the path of excessive blow-by. So what I did was removed all the spark plugs, and I ran a compression test. The number 1 cylinder was like 185. The number 2 cylinder was 145, the number 3 was 100, and number 4 was 185. So just by that compression test, I knew that it wasn't like a blown head gasket. For one thing, he hadn't lost any coolant or anything like that. So we know it's not a blown head gasket into a water port. If the gasket was blown between the 2 cylinders, we would be getting an even loss of compression. You know, it'd be right like down to almost nothing. So, and I've seen this problem on the Hemi engines. What's happened is that the PVC system is crappy on this engine, and it's allowing for all those oil vapors to enter the intake, and then they get sucked in, you know, through the intake system, and basically you've got a you know, almost like running a 2-cycle engine. And what happens is oil, when it burns, it forms carbon, and the rings, what happens is they carbon up, and they will not expand and tighten up in the bore like they're supposed to. So what we did to see if we can free them up is, the first thing I did was pulled all 4 spark plugs, and I got a pint can of seafoam, and I put an equal amount, poured it into the cylinders, equal amount, and I let it set for like 24 hours. And you know, I got the spark plugs out. You know, I put a rag over the holes. Then what I did was crank the engine over. You know, roll it over quite a few times to blow that chemical out of there. And then I put the plugs in and fired it up, and man, it smoked like hell. You know, if anybody worked with that seafoam, you know, it's like bug killer. So you know, it was running rough for a while until it got that seafoam burn out of there and carbon deposits, and then you know, we drove it around for a while, and it kept getting better and better, and finally the engine pretty much came back to normal. And the check engine light went out, and they've been driving it around for about a week. So what I told them, I said, what we want to do next is to take all the plugs back out, and then I'm going to run a compression test. So I'm going to do that test, and I'll show you the results. Okay, we did a compression test on the first cylinder, and it came up 5 pounds. We had 185, now we're at 190. Now I'm doing the second cylinder, which was at 145. Go ahead and crank it. Okay, so now you can see number 2 cylinder is went all the way up to 180. And it was at 145, so the seafoam did a lot of good on it. Okay, this is the number 3 cylinder. Go ahead. See, we brought it up to a little over 160. This is the number 4 cylinder. Go ahead. $185. Okay, since we've seen a huge improvement just putting the seafoam in and letting it set and then running the engine, we seen how much the compression came up. Now what I'm trying is this product called Piston Clean. Removes carbon from the cylinders or the pistons. So what I did was I put 4 ounces into each cylinder. Use this funnel and a rubber hose. 4 ounces in each cylinder. We're going to leave it sit another 24 hours, and then we'll crank it over and blow all that chemical and any loose carbon out. And make sure you cover the top of this with a rag, because otherwise that stuff's going to be squirting all over the place. So what we'll do is we'll do that, put the plugs back in, and we'll run it, and I'll have them you know, we'll run it here for a bit, and then I'm going to change the oil and make sure any of this chemical or any of the seafoam is out of the oil system. And we'll have them drive it for like a couple weeks, and then we'll come back and do another compression test. Okay, this is the fix we put in on the 2016 Jeep Patriot. This is a PVC catch can, and it has a filter system in it, and on the bottom of it, it has a drain plug all the way down here. So what happens is this is the PVC valve, and this is the engine vacuum source going to the intake. So it's sucking from the PVC, it's going into here, it's filtering, knocking that oil vapor out, and then now you got clean air going back into the intake. So that's going to get rid of all that oil, airborne oil that's in the intake, and going in and burning, creating all that carbon. Now we did that, you know, that second flush with that piston cleaner stuff I got. We're going to see how much blow-by we're getting now. It's almost like normal now. It would actually blow this thing right off of there when we first started. And what we're going to do is I'll do a follow-up on this video when it's due for an oil change. We're going to run another compression test and see if all the cylinders eventually evened out.